What's going on, guys? So today we got an Xbox Series X that's got a damaged HDMI port. So this is damaged. We're gonna go ahead and replace that. So what I'm gonna do now is just take it apart and show you guys how I do it. So this back cover comes off. There's a sticker right here. There's a screw right there and a screw right there. You gotta take this sticker off. I like to use like the heat gun to kind of melt the adhesive underneath. That way it comes off a lot easier. And then once you get that off, you have to take the bottom stand off. So to do that, you just need to get like a plastic pry tool long enough. There's a little clip in the bottom. There's a clip right here. You're gonna have to pull that back towards the inside, and then you can twist this. And then once you get that pulled, you just twist it and that comes off. You got screws on the bottom. Two down here, one in the center, and then these two black ones. So you got 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're gonna have to take those off. All right, and then now that we have the screws off, there's this cover for the CD drive. There's another screw right here. We'll take that off. I like to wiggle this out, kind of pull on the case right here, and it'll come out easily. Cool thing, they have the Halo little Easter egg right here at the bottom right. To take out this is the fan. So we're gonna take off this screw. And then you got the cable. So typically what you wanna do with the cable, I like to wiggle it, but you gotta be very careful with that because you could pull it off. You wanna make sure you pull it from the actual plastic of the cable. Because if you're just wiggling it from the cables itself, you could damage it and it could pull out the connection in the head of the cable. So now that you got that unplugged from the board, you just pull this up like this. And it's actually pretty decently clean. It spins pretty good. So we'll put that aside. Thankfully there's no cockroaches or dust in this one. I get a lot of customer computers and Xboxes and PS5s that have cockroaches in it. It's disgusting. All right, next thing is take out this optical drive. So there's a SATA cable right here you unplug, and then the power cable for it as well. And we'll just slide that up. So now that we got all of those out, we're gonna pull out the cables. So there's two cables right here, two ribbon cables. This cable right here, there's a little clip. You have to get like the flat side in there. There's a little clip, so you just pull that back. Be very careful, don't force it. And then this comes up. So you can lift that up. And then this one, actually you click in. So you push it in instead of pulling it. Be very careful not to pull it because then you can just damage it. What you can do is take out the entire board. And that's how you take it out of the case. Now this has a lot of screws. You're gonna have to remove a lot of things just to get to the board where the HDMI port is. So I'm gonna kind of speed through that and I'll show you guys how to do it. So you got multiple screws. You have this cover for the power connector. You can just clip that off, and then this has 3 screws right here. Next, what we can do is kind of move that up. You can flip this over onto the side, and you see right here there's a clip. So don't forget how that's positioned. This goes on top, and you start off by putting this one first, and you go around. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that off, and then we can take off the screws for this. And then it's smart to take this off as well. Now we're just going to take off the cover. Alright, so that comes off just like so. This has a clip right here, so you're going to have to unclip this. There's a clip right there where you press down and then you can pull it out. There we go. And then we'll unclip this. Unplug this. There's a clip in the back side underneath the cable. Make sure you press that down whenever you're pulling it off. That way you don't damage it. Alright, and there's also a clip for this right here. We're going to unplug that. What you can do is kind of lift this up since we unscrewed everything. We don't need to take this apart anymore. This is separate. This isn't a part of the HDMI port. So this is a whole separate board for it. So we'll put this off to the side. Alright, so what I like to do is I like to take this off from this side. You kind of know which one goes in first. So this says number 1 SOC. So this goes into the board. And then this goes on the outside, number 2. So the HDMI port is right here. You see how it's damaged right there. What we're gonna have to do is heat this up. First, we're gonna take this entire board off though, because we can't solder it when this is still on here. So we're gonna have to take it off completely. To do that, we have to unscrew these screws. Make sure you put this in the right way as well. Since this is right here, we can we can just call this number 1, so we have to face it this way. And then the black little bracket underneath goes that way. So we'll go ahead and unscrew this. You don't want to do it all at once. You gotta do it one at a time, little by little, because it has tension and it's pulling on it. You don't want it to pop up. And that's off. Now to get under this, to make sure that you can take it off, it's not screwed down if I remember correctly. Kind of get our plastic tool in between the crack and twist it. Unlike the PS5, this doesn't have liquid metal. It has silver compound. It has thermal paste. As you can see, it's dry. It's not cooling it at all. So we're gonna put fresh thermal paste for the customer. You do not want the CPU's thermal paste to be dry and chalky. As you can see, this is chalky. We're gonna put fresh thermal paste on here once we clean it up and finish it up. All right, guys, so got it under the microscope. So to take this off, it's very, very thick board. This resists heat really well. So what I like to do is I like to heat it up, and I use a trick. There's something called low melt solder. So low melt solder, what it does is it decreases the melting point of the solder, like the factory solder, when you mix it with it. So to be able to do that, what you have to do is add some flux and put solder on the tip of your iron, kind of scrape it against the legs. That way you can mix with the factory solder and lower the melting point. And then we'll have to flip it. So those are the legs. You got 4 legs right there. Insert some low melt solder in there and try to get it off. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on camera or off camera. Try to get it done as quick as possible. That way you guys can see me replace it. So we definitely need flux on this. So what I'll do is go ahead and get low melt solder. As you see, it melts really fast, barely touching it, and you see it's still liquid. You want to be careful not to hit anything else but the pins here. So now that we heated that up, apply some flux onto this side, onto the legs. So let's put flux here, flux right here, low melt solder right here. I'll attach some right here. While I heat it up with the iron, I like to use the heat gun to help it melt faster and mix faster. This does take some time. You gotta be patient. Don't force the HDMI port off, and that's it. And it comes off. It's that easy. What I like to do is heat this up and use my sucker right here. You gotta get one of these, and while it's still hot, you just suck that out. Go ahead and put this on here, clean up my tip, and I like to put a little bit of flux. That way it helps me lift it up a little bit easier. So you mainly want to use flux, especially whenever you're putting fresh solder on the pad. So let's get our HDMI port. It's a brand new HDMI port right here. We're gonna get fresh solder on our iron, and then what I like to do is just go back and forth. And what I like to do while it's hot, spray it. If you don't knock anything off while it's hot, because you want to let it cool down. And I like to use a electric toothbrush. That looks clean to me. Alright, so now that we have the port in, you want to make sure it aligns with the pad. So let me get my tweezers here. So make sure it's aligning and it's not like lopsided or crooked. Make sure it's seated properly. So you don't want it to be too far back or too far forward. While I hold it with my thumb, I'm just going to go over from the front. That way it melts it really well. So what I'll do here is put a lot of flux in these holes. Solder on the tip. Pressure on it, let it melt in. So now that I have the solder in the holes of the leg, I'm going to heat it up with my heat gun and put pressure down. I put pressure down, it's going to push the legs through the holes because the holes are going to start melting slowly. Now what we're going to do is just check each leg and make sure it has a good amount of solder on them and make sure they're not bridging. So we'll go ahead and add some flux, and we'll just go over the legs like this and heat them up. So we'll go over the legs real quick. Just go back and forth. Now we'll spray it with some alcohol. Use our toothbrush, and what we can do is just kind of lift it so we can see the legs. Alright guys, so before I put this back together, I'm going to show you guys how I check to see if the legs are soldered down correctly and soldered down all the way. And your precision tweezers, and just check each pin. So I'm going to check this first one. Everything looks good. So these are all really good. Alright guys, so before we put it back together, we have to clean off the old thermal paste. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that off. Alright, so we got that cleaned off. And then we got thermal paste. Go ahead and use our MX6. It's the best one. We'll go ahead and clean this one off too. Now, you don't want to use anything metal on this, especially like if it's on, but obviously it's not on. So I like to clean out the sides at least a little bit. So now that we got that cleaned, so we'll go ahead and put this on here. Get the perfect amount of thermal paste. Kind of spread it. I like to spread it around a little bit. That way it sticks a little bit better to the CPU. And then we can prime the heat sink right here as well. All right, so this we have to put back on. So we're gonna flip it, get it on the track here, make sure it sits perfectly, and I will do the rest off camera. All right, guys, so we got the Xbox over here. I didn't close it all the way, and I didn't put everything back together all the way. I like to check before I actually, close it all the way up. So what we're gonna do is, first I like to plug in the HDMI port here, make sure it's snug. Yeah, that went in pretty smooth. And then we'll get the power cord in, and then I got a USB because this is not my Xbox, so it's not gonna sync. And then what we'll do is just turn it on. You can turn it on from the power button, or you can just use the Xbox. And we'll see if we get an image. Probably gonna do a repair. Oh, there we go. We got it. So it's working. All right, and sometimes what you may have to do is just go to settings and then adjust the display because it is a new HDMI port. It may decrease the display quality. So just make sure you go into settings, general, and then TV and display options and change the resolution. So let's change it to 4K Ultra HD and do higher at the 60 Hz refresh rate. And that's it. It's all working good. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you subscribe and like this video and share it if you found it helpful. And feel free to comment and let me know what you guys do whenever you do repairs. I'd love to hear you guys your own way of repairing HDMI ports. Thank you very much. You guys have a good one.